We are live. How's everybody doing tonight? This is The Higher Frequency. I am your host, Mike Booth. And to my left, I have my guest.
Hello, everyone. I am Tzion Barlev, and I'm going to be the guest for tonight.
And tonight, we're going to try some fun stuff. We're going to do some spooky. I have been holding this back a little bit, but this is going to be the first time I get to explain it. I have received a request to join a show. It is going to be a conspiracy show coming up soon. I'm pretty excited about that. That has me excited. Yay.
Sounds great.
It will be a co-hosted show, and I will be able to plug my show in with it, and I will get to do a few dash spots and learn from some really good people. And my buddy came on today. We are going to speak about the paranormal. He had you were doing a show for a while, right?
Yeah, my paranormal show was called Spiritual Development. That was on Blog Talk Radio. And then I also co-hosted with some other guys with some other radio shows over there. And I did that for years.
That's awesome.
It originally started off with like the religious and the spiritual, but then we got into the paranormal. And so, yeah, that was on Blog Talk Radio. But I ran under another pen name, if you will. I used the name Davini over there, and I'll explain that here in a few minutes because it ties in. But Davini was one of the names that I used for that. So if you look up Blog Talk Radio, Spiritual Development with Davini, you'll see my face on there. So, yeah, it's on there. But that was years ago.
That's really awesome. So how long did you keep that going for?
Oh my goodness. That probably 6 years. And then I did about 3 years with two other guys, and we had like a round table going. There was actually two different radio shows. One of them was with a guy named Dennis Crenshaw, and he was really big into conspiracies around the 17 and 1800s with what he called the Hollow Earth. And so his program on there... Yeah, his program, he actually is an author of several books. It was Dennis Crenshaw. I met him, and he had a buddy named Rick. And they were running a show, and it was called The Hollow Earth. And then there was another show that was specifically dealing with paranormal, UFOs and stuff like that. So towards the end, for about 3 years, I worked with all of these guys, jumping back and forth, and it was something else. It was really fun. And the interesting thing is, the main host on one of the shows, his name was Angel. Yeah, nice. He was a Latino guy from Florida. He was really amazing to work with.
As far as the Hollow Earth, I absolutely love that story. I think that's one of the coolest conspiracies that's ever happened. There's an actual admiral from the Navy who went out and did I forget what the project's name was, but he
you talking about the Antarctic?
The Antarctic, yeah.
Where he went to the Antarctic.
He brought a complete legion of people, ships, like an armada. I mean, it had ships, planes, cargoes, supplies. It had everything you could think of, and they went out to Antarctica, and they had an expedition that was supposed to look around for natural resources, because apparently that place still has some of the highest natural resources of all continents that are still available.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because most people consider this a conspiracy, but this was an admiral. He had nothing. There's no reason for him to lie. There's no reason for him to make all of this up, to add footage and to do all of that. So everything he says in this that I saw from it was definitely factual. So I don't really know why they still call this a conspiracy, but the Hollow Earth stuff is amazing.
It gets crazy.
It gets really crazy.
That it's not really my cup of tea and my subject. It was with Dennis Crenshaw. He's an author of several books.
That's a good one.
But he actually had maps, and he had diaries of some of these people, and he would show this off.
I love that.
He wrote it, like, the really interesting thing is, most people don't know about the Hollow Earth thing, is that there were airships that were said to be flying around
in and out of it too.
Yeah, and they thought that they were they thought at first they were like maybe Russian or U.S. secret airships, and these things were supposedly going in and out of these giant caverns in the Antarctic. It's not really my cup of tea. It's not really my subject. It was Dennis Crenshaw that would talk a lot about it, but
what I really liked about
it was interesting.
What I really liked about some of the stuff that I saw was that there is basically in the middle of the Antarctic is a continent that is the size of the United States. That's all perfectly green and lush and looks beautiful from what they said. And that there is parts in it. You know, it's not just a frozen wasteland like what you see pictures of. Apparently there's these caverns for the folks out there listening.
Yeah.
There's these caverns that go deep inside of the earth. And when they say hollow earth, I guess what they're saying is that there's these giant caverns that go miles and miles deep. And there is actual, I guess, full-sized continents inside of this giant crater.
Yep.
And that apparently, you know, that there has been people going in and out of there for years. And a lot of these countries know about this because there's treaties that have been signed between all, and when I say all, I mean all of the countries around us. So like it's a national treaty, and it's held longer than any other treaty known to man to date. Like there is no treaty where this many countries have gotten together and said, "Oh, okay, we'll work together." Like, nope.
Yeah. Have you seen the new Godzilla and King Kong movies?
No.
They play with that.
Oh,
they had the hollow
I need
earth
to watch
all
that.
through it. But the hollow earth is not really a subject that I, you know, I'm not going to get into it because I don't know enough. I can only repeat the words of Dennis Crenshaw. But it was his life, dude. Like when you went to his house, he had a whole room of like maps and like diaries and stuff behind
awesome.
like glass, trophy cases that would have things in there. And he made it his life. I I respected the man, but you know, it was his subject.
I feel like there's enough stuff that you could talk about in that you would have episodes for forever. There's not enough time to speak about the hollow earth because it's just that big of a subject.
They made a whole they literally
big.
made a whole radio show based off of it.
It's insane.
So,
it's
like,
so big.
Yeah, there's so much stuff. I mean, there's talk of aliens, there's talk of giants, there's talk of
I love that stuff.
of like human civilizations that lived on Antarctica before it was ice, and then also into the earth. And Dennis Crenshaw also believed. Now I don't follow it, but he did. But he also believed that the moon was possibly a hollow moon too. And then I
have heard some stories on that.
Yeah, there's some crazy conspiracies on that.
The best one that I know of is that they launched a missile at the moon.
Yep.
And it rang for like 3 hours or something.
They said it rang like a bell. Yep.
That's insane. Like that's freaky. To me, I find that weird because, you know, you get a lot of people who ask, do you believe in the moon landing? And I'm like, no, I don't. And they're like, why? And I'm like, well, because there's this thing called the Van Allen radiation belt. And that's my main concern. And if you see the ship that they try to say that we supposedly landed in, it's made out of tinfoil and tin.
Yeah.
Both of those things are not radioactive. Like,
and
they don't block radiation.
Yeah, the radiation belt that's up there, Russia could not figure out how to get past it.
Yeah, nobody could. It's insane.
Yeah, have you seen where their astronauts went up and came back down with like 4th degree burns?
Yeah, they were they were ate up, and
Yep.
To me, anything that goes up there is going to have this problem. One, we can't have highly sophisticated pieces of technology. Like, you think that little stuff like what we see as technology, you think that's sophisticated? Some of the tech that goes into those spaceships are like $1 billion for one computer. It cannot withstand radiation. So if it goes up there and it fries, you're basically flying around in a tin can. And I never understood how they could try to pass that off like that's really what happened. It makes me laugh.
Yeah, I mean, I don't believe that the moon landing was real, but I'm not saying that because of any other the only reason I'm saying that is because I think that because of the Cold War, they were pushed to fake it. And I really think that was the motive there. I don't think that, there's some people that say, oh, well, there's aliens out there, or you can't, there's people that believe that the earth has a dome that's physical.
I like that one because to me, I like that one because it says that, so there's biblical texts in all of the different religions, like, each, would you call that biblical? Does every religion have its own Bible, or is it called something different?
So the word Bible literally means holy book.
So, so it's fine to say Bible for all that. Okay, so every context, every country has their own Bible, and it's like each one of them kind of talk about the dome, and each one of them kind of talk about how we got here. And to me, I find that really comforting because it feels like we are special in the world for that reason. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't believe in, like, I know that there's a lot of people that believe in like the flat earth, and they're pulling up a lot of Christian text, and they're looking at the dome. But the problem is that when you're looking at it from that, the dome was literally being described as just a nighttime sky. It wasn't like a solid thing. So there are people that believe that the reason we couldn't go to the moon is we can't shoot a rocket through this dome.
That dome, right.
I don't agree. I don't agree with that. I don't prescribe to that. But I do believe that the moon landing with like Neil Armstrong and all that, I do believe that was faked and staged. But I believe it was because they wanted to save face with Russia and the Cold War. You know what I mean? But
makes sense.
But yeah, like the whole hollow earth thing, it goes into so many just crazy things. But I mean, it's not really it's not my topic.
I do like some of the things, and some of it's really interesting because you have, like right now, if you go to any, and I mean this, you can look this up for anything. If you go to any rocket firing where they launch one of these rockets from like Cape Canaveral, or what you're going to see is you're never going to see a rocket go straight up. It won't do it. And their explanation is that it has to go geosynchronous, and it needs to gain enough speed to be able to break out. So it has to do a curve that goes backwards so it can launch its way out, which, yay, cool excuse, but that doesn't make any sense at all. Like, velocity speeds always is going to be a straight line. I don't care what you do. If you go to test out a race car, the only reason that they have them going around in a track is because they can't make tracks long enough to be able to get to those speeds.
Yeah.
Now, if you go to the big boy tracks where they test out like the Bugatti and all these, it's a straight line. It's a long track that just goes straight, and that's where they get their top speeds at. You don't want to have to deal with fighting a curve as you're trying to test out for speeds. When you go to what is that place out in Nevada? They do the land speed records. It's a straight stretch. They're not doing the land speed by doing around in circles. They go.
I don't know what you're talking about. I thought you were talking about like the military bases, like White Sands and all that. But
no, they do these things where whenever you watch a rocket take off, it'll go up and it'll come backwards, and you'll see it literally take the arch, and it just keeps going. Some people that are in the conspiracy field, like I love these types of topics because they're interesting and it makes people talk. There's no real reason for you to fire a rocket off and make it go backwards. Like, so a lot of these conspiracy people are saying that this rocket goes up and then it flies backwards and then it comes down somewhere in the Atlantic instead of going out. That's kind of interesting to me. It's like, so for everything that I have researched on, there has never been anyone who has ever been out of what they call the lower atmosphere or the upper atmosphere.
Yeah, even the space station is not even.
It's in a geosynchronous orbit called low Earth orbit, and that's where it stays. There is I want to know where did you ever hear anything about the Black Knight satellite?
The Black Knight. That is that weird looking satellite that they said it looked like an alien ship, right?
And it's been up there for years, and nobody knows whose it is. Nobody shot it down. I guess they've tried to shoot it down, but I've heard all kinds of stories on that one. I really want to do some stuff on that.
I don't know about that. But, I don't really, I've seen that, but there are a lot of people out there that and I'm not trying to say everything is fake, but there are people out there today that use technology, and they will fake stuff for fame.
Yeah.
And you know, how do you prove that Black Knight was even really there? Because most of the supposed videos are from satellites that are already in space, and they claim it's from NASA. And
yeah, that's the thing, because it's like none of us have rockets, none of us have a way
Yeah.
to actually look at this thing and to see what's going on with it. So it's definitely one of those. It's kind of scary because most of the ways that you would prove something, you would have to have more more tech to be able to prove it.
Yeah,
And
conspiracies are fun though.
they are fun.
They are fun.
and I find it interesting how people take some of the conspiracies. So for me, I like them because they're fun and they don't really. It's not going to make or break my day if it comes out to be true or not. So some people put their whole lives onto it, and they have to be right. They're like, I need to be right because nothing else makes sense. And but I feel that way about everything. I feel like there's nothing that's going to make or break my day, because I don't know enough about it. Right. So like, now if I was like some guy who was like working at like, let's say, a nuclear facility, or I had to know timing to an exact science, or else I'm just going to die of radiation. Now, I think that would be a little different, but for the most part, none of my jobs have ever been that serious where I had to know something that,
I'll tell you something that's stressful. Have you seen all the videos of where, and it's not just NASA, but the military bases, they had nuclear arms stored there, and the technicians could not explain why the nukes went off and were active.
I've heard some stories on that.
And sometimes there's a UFO there that they see is shining a light down.
Either it shoots them, or it's turning them off, or making them non...
You imagine being the guy, though, who has to explain to our government
why the nuke is not working.
And you don't know? Yeah.
And the scary part is like the technician has to figure this out by going up to it and running a series of tests.
Yep.
And you got to think, when you get up there, what do you tell your commanders? Like, by the way, this big thing that we're using, it's not working right now.
Yeah. So
it's all over the world too.
I don't know. Like there are conspiracies on that too, with like, UFOs being able to shut down our nukes, where people are like, oh, well, they're good. I don't buy that.
We hope.
We don't know. Well, number one, if it's another alien culture, we already got enough human cultures on this planet now.
Yeah.
That when you look at each culture, they're vastly different from the other, to the point to where a person in a certain tribe thinks completely different from somebody else on the other side of the world. Yeah. So why would aliens not? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we would not understand how they think, how they do their logic, what they would even consider right and wrong.
I feel
what I mean?
I feel like that's true to an extent. I feel like some parts of... If we went to any culture in the world, there's similarities between all of us, like all the way around the world. So it's like, and for the most part, in my opinion, I think there's more that connects us and combines us than that separates us. Like,
well, yeah.
So the little small parts that we find that makes us different, that deviates us, we tend to kind of stick to those, and we kind of like make that like it's some kind of big deal. But when you really think about it and you break it down, it's really not. And it's right. Frustrating, because if we went to, I don't know where that one place is, but there's an island where it's filled with people who have never seen anyone outside of the island. Like nobody.
Yeah, that's in the Amazon.
Okay, so there's a tribe in there.
Yeah.
And if we went and we spoke to them, or we looked at all the things that they're doing right now, all of the things that they're doing will have some basis of some of the things that we have done in the past. Yeah. Or, if there was an alien civilization out there somewhere, there is some parts that will uniquely tie in with ours that they have done, or that we have done similar things.
Yeah, and we should also assume that they have a planet full of different cultures, different ideas, different religions, maybe
even different types of like subspecies, different creatures. Like they might have pets. Like that's an interesting thought. Nobody ever really talks about. I like the theory of that there is civilizations, and that the things that we are seeing out here on our planet is drones, not actual creatures. I think that that's a really cool thought process. So like, so
You're talking about seeing a UFO,
like
and
when
then
we see UFOs, UAVs, and all these different things that
they're
of them
drones,
are actual real things. So even the beings that come out of them
Yeah.
are actually just drone people. Like
yeah. So there was a guy that proposed that way back in the 90s.
yeah, I always thought that seems accurate to
Yeah,
me.
and that was Daryl Sims, and he's the guy I was telling you about before I came up here to be on the show.
Yep.
He was the one that they based the X-Files off of as Mulder.
Oh, I love
his
that.
his name was Daryl Sims. He's still alive. I don't mean to speak in past tense, but that guy is both a genius and he's also crazy. And I met him one
Is
time.
that 2 M's in Sims or just one?
Sims is 2 M's, and yeah, he actually might be a good guest for the podcast. He almost always gets on.
I would love to have somebody
Yeah.
like that. to talk to
I've
on
never heard of him even
Sims.
telling anybody no. In fact, I knew people that were just starting off that that had podcasts and radio shows, and he jumped right on there.
Oh, that'd be awesome. That'd be amazing. I would love that.
Man, he's got some crazy idea. He is trying to capture either alien technology or the aliens themselves, but he does have the, I don't want to call it a conspiracy theory, but he has the theory that the gray aliens specifically are robotic and remote, and he works with hypnosis, believe it or not, and he has taken some alien abductees that he classified as they're legit, they're telling the truth, and he's hypnotized them that when they are being abducted, that they snap out of it and they go into a command mode where they give commands mentally to these gray aliens without fear, and that they're doing it like in an authoritative way. And all of these abductees that he works with, and I'm not saying I believe him or not. I mean, I do tend to believe a lot of his stories, but I'm just telling you that's what Daryl Sims says. But he has story after story of where these alien abductees will come back and say, it worked. I was able to command these gray aliens to do stuff.
Oh, wow.
And then they're terrified in the back of their subconscious, but because they're hypnotized in this moment, he has commanded them to not be fearful when they see this go on.
See, I love that.
It's crazy.
I have been saying for years that I think that hypnotism is amazing, and it's used for parlor tricks, unfortunately. People are using it for the dumbest reasons.
Well,
you know how quickly we could, like, if it was done correctly, and it was, in my opinion, if it was done correctly, you could have a store, like, in any corner, where you could have a person come in and be like, hey, look, I'm starting to falter off. Like I'm kind of wanting to go smoke a cigarette or something. And you could go up to a person and you'd have a counselor, you'd have the hypnotist, and you'd have a supervisor and somebody who's watching you to make sure that nobody's doing anything fishy. And you could go in and be like, hey, I need a tune up real quick. And basically now you'll never smoke for the next like 6 months or a year, whatever, however long that stuff lasts.
Hypnosis can be very dangerous, but I'll tell you, if you join, like, okay, so if you join, like, there's different clubs. I told you before about how there was a magician's club versus a clown club, and I was telling you that I knew some clowns.
How they fight each other. Yeah, like there's a secret war of the clowns versus the magicians. Oh my gosh, that's definitely going to be a podcast. Yeah. That is definitely going to be an episode. We are doing that.
So the magicians do not want the clowns doing magic tricks, okay, at all. So when the clowns are doing things like, now being a mime is different. So there's like a whole class of mimes. But I met some people that were in the clown school, and they talked about how it was almost like a gang mafia thing, man. It was crazy. But so hypnotism is a whole different thing. There's a club of it.
It's kind of weird. I must be a magician because I'm terrified of clowns. So like, I'm wondering if it's like, are you destined for this club, or is it something that you just join up with?
You join them up. There's like a fee. You join them up, and then they teach you things, and you actually are learning like an apprenticeship with a mentor.
That's one of the things that I have coming up is one of the episodes we're going to be doing soon is talking about magic and myth, and talking about how magic works and why we don't really see a lot of people using magic like they should, but we do hear we do hear a lot of things where they say, "Oh, magic's not real." If magic's not real, then why are we hearing now manifestation? Manifestation is a product of magic, and I think it's funny that most people are saying that magic's not real, but yet manifestation is everywhere. We're hearing everybody nowadays talking about, "Oh, just manifest," you know. It's a big deal. And I don't know. I think that's a really interesting topic, talking about magic, and I definitely would love to see. I want to see him do a movie about this. Magicians versus clowns just sounds like a badass title for a movie. Like, I would watch that.
But so there is a hypnotist club though. But I do know for a fact that when they tell people that they can never hypnotize someone to do something against their will, that's total BS. That is absolutely BS. There was a famous hypnotist in the 1950s.
I was like, I've seen plenty of them where they do stuff against their will.
There was a guy in the 1950s, and he went out to prove how deep hypnosis could be. So he met people at a bank, and he found out who they were. He made it his mission to meet them at like the grocery store or whatever, and he would do what they call a live script in hypnosis, and it's where you're doing subliminal like messages and scripting, and he got it to the point to where he was able to go to the bank and he was able to get them to withdraw tons of money without his ID, without anything. So he's basically robbing the bank, putting it in a bag, and it was a big thing because he showed everybody, hey, I can do it. And then he gave the money right back.
It's terrifying.
So
there's a guy, what is his name? It's Darren Brown. Darren Brown did a whole his whole show was basically dedicated to like not just sleight of hand, but like it's more like what do you call those? They're not con men, but they're sort of confidence men, but they're a little different. It's not just a grifter. It's like they can tell you to do something and you do it. Like,
that's hypnosis, but
it's kind of, but it's a different type of hypnosis. It's like they'll be like they'll basically like light touch you, but yet take your watch, your wallet, and all your stuff.
Well, yeah, that's still in the pickpocket area.
It's like a pickpocket, but it's like but they're doing it in a weird way that I don't know. But this guy, he made it his passion that he believed that he could do this so well that he could tell people to do something, and it's a persuasion.
Maybe it's probably in a persuasion.
It's something in the persuasion part, but he ended up making a science with it to where he mixed hypnotism and persuasion together, and he wanted to see how far he could take it. And he had a whole everyone involved was scripted and was people that
Are you talking about the NPL stuff?
He kind of did. Yeah, it's a neural linguistics program. Yeah, it's a type like that. But he had it so far that he had a real gun, but it wasn't loaded, and he wanted to see if the guy would eventually pull the trigger. And the whole series was about him pulling a trigger. So they filled his mind with a whole bunch of weird stuff subliminally, and then talked to him for days and days and days.
Yeah.
And then there was this big event, like a dinner, and the guy didn't even know what he was doing. He just started fulfilling the things that the guy was telling him. He he grabbed the pieces of the gun, he put the gun together, he grabbed all the things, thought it was loaded, walked straight up to the guy and pulled the trigger.
That goes back to JFK's assassination with Lee Harvey Oswald too.
Terrifying.
Because there's people that think that Lee Harvey Oswald was under one of those scripted commands to kill JFK.
Yeah, because you wouldn't know. How would you know? And then what's your defense? Oh, I didn't know I was doing that. I'm so sorry.
That's MK Ultra.
Yeah, I didn't know.
So MK Ultra started off with dealing with hypnosis, and then they got into subliminal messaging, and then they started playing around with all the psychic stuff, and there's been full government releases to some of the stuff to show that MK Ultra was real.
Yeah. I kind of feel. I don't want anybody out there to think that I'm some weird robot or something, but I kind of feel like I am the child of an MK Ultra program. There's just things. I know too much. I know too much. I feel like they're gonna kill me at some point in life, but I'm going to get to the masses. You guys are gonna hear from me somehow. But yeah.
So Yeah, so when you're going back to the manifestation topic, I do know that there are groups that absolutely keep some of that under wraps.
Yeah.
And they don't care if some stuff gets out because it's how they attract new blood to join their groups.
And plus,
You know
some
what
of
I mean?
it, I would imagine, it's just like false narratives. Like, so they kind of want it to get out, so then it
Some
kind of
of it,
gives
yeah.
them deniability. Like,
Yeah.
you believe in this bullshit?
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah, and then the disinformation is really big on that. So, like, one of the key things with disinformation is you let some of the truth out,
Yep.
and then you mock it.
And then you
even though
flood
you're
it with-
doing that
yeah.
thing, you're supporting it in real life. You're like,
flooding it
oh,
with
that's
bull crap
that's a
with it, yeah.
conspiracy. How can you believe in that? Yeah, mockery though, man.
It's terrifying if
yeah.
used correctly.
Yeah, if you get enough people mocking a guy, it can drive him. It can drive him insane. Or
There has been several that I know of that are theories that we still call theories today that should be proven into fact, but for some reason we call them theories. There's the theory of gravity. It is still considered a theory, which makes no sense. If I toss something up in the air, it's going to come back down. But some places and for some situations, that doesn't happen. You'll throw something in the air and it won't
a theory,
come back
though.
down.
Are you sure it's still called a
the,
theory?
The theory of gravity is a theory. And
That's interesting.
relativity is a thing that should be, it's generally looked at. We all understand that relativity is a thing. Like, you do something, cause and effect. It's going to happen. For some reason, it still holds as a theory. It's like, why are you still holding on to the fact that this is a theory? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Well, it would be because they can show examples that don't make sense into what they would consider the normal rules for this.
Right.
So I can see why gravity might be a theory. I don't honestly know, but I could see why it would move it, because all you got to do is show, there's weird places where electromagnetism changes things, or there's places on the earth where you can see where the gravity is different and it works different.
So there's another good example of this was Nikola Tesla and was it Graham Bell? What? No, Thomas Edison.
Thomas Edison and Tesla had like a rivalry going. Yeah.
And Thomas Edison literally electrified a elephant to try to down Nikola Tesla, saying that his current was awful and that it would just completely kill this elephant, and he did so, and he murdered an elephant right there, just trying to disprove this guy. But this is what I'm saying. This is the type of thing that happens today. You'll have a lot of like whistleblowers and people who want to come out. Ooh, did you hear about the whistleblower that just got freed?
I don't know.
The leader of WikiLeaks. Julian Assange.
Yeah.
He is free now.
Yeah.
That is cool. Thank you.
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
something finally.
He's a brave man. He
That
set
is
up
a
the
brave
whole
dude.
He set up the whole page for like whistleblowers to
See,
come.
I don't understand why we would hate whistleblowers. I think
we don't. It's the people
as
that
people,
they're.
we should love these
Yeah.
people because they are brave. They're going out of their way to change history to try to help us.
Right.
Like all humanity. And I think personally those people should be applauded and should be saved, and there should be programs that help them. But
So let me tell you something real quick that was told to me by another guy. So I was involved in a certain group, and we were talking about conspiracy theories. And he sat me down and he said, "Listen, let me tell you something." He said, "Every company and every family on Earth, they're going to have some kind of area that you could put it into conspiracy where they did something wrong and they covered it up. It doesn't matter what it is." Mm-hmm. He said, "Think about how many times as a parent that you have to tell a white lie to your kids to keep them out of trouble or something like that."
Tons.
And he said, so here's what he uses as an example. He said, say you're just running a grocery store. You're the manager of a grocery store, and your people that are dealing with the meat, they've now reported that some of your meat is going to go bad. Right. Well, you got several options, okay? Mm-hmm. You can put it on the, half off aisle, and you can tell people, hey, it's going to expire here soon, yada, yada, yada. Mm-hmm. Or you can throw it out, or you can say nothing and still try to sell it. Now, over time, mm-hmm. if you have come from a family that ran that, it becomes lodged into your head that, hey, I'm taking up my granddad's business or my mom's business, my mm-hmm. dad's business. You are more prone to lying to the people just to sell that meat than what you would be if you were like full integrity and you're like, no, let's get rid of it. So there is peer pressure. And so the guy that told me this said, now listen, if a grocery store would do something like this, what do you think a big company that's pulling in billions of dollars is going to do when one of their projects is not going the way they want it? They're going to lie about it.
Yeah, that's true.
So, and that's just, what I'm saying is for the people that would be listening that think that all conspiracies are a lie, you can find conspiracies anywhere.
Everywhere.
So if little companies would do some tiny conspiracy, maybe they bought something and they lied about something just to save some tax money or whatever for the business, that could be a conspiracy.
Be a thing,
that even though it's a tiny one.
I feel like the best conspiracies are the ones that are embedded in the truth, that you can find some semblance of the truth in it, and it makes it that much easier for them to lie for some reason. So the more truth is in a conspiracy, the easier it is for them to be like, they hide in plain sight. Like they just we just disappear. Like, huh? It doesn't make any sense, but it does. That's so creepy.
That's an old Illuminati trick where you hide the secret. In the open.
Right in plain sight.
Yeah, you do it in a way so that like it desensitizes people to a point, and they're like, oh, that's normal,
I was driving truck for a few years, and there's a conspiracy theory that's out there, and you can look it up. I don't care. I was there. I was driving for it. We had a chain, and we were part of the company that had there had to have been 1,000 trucks. There was 1,000 of us on the road in one line, and we had to keep up in the line the entire way. And we were delivering pieces and parts to a Walmart. This was not like any Walmart that I had ever seen. I'm not breaking any clause for saying it because I never got to look in the back of the truck.
Is there a contract as a truck driver? So you got to be right in front of the other
truck? As a
contractor,
this is how it worked. I worked for a company. I'm not going to name the company because I could probably get in trouble that way. But there was 6 different companies that were all working together in tandem. And they had every truck that they owned out on the road for this one haul. And there was 1,000 trucks going up. And we had police escorts that came onto the sides of us, would cut off roads, so we never had to stop. We'd just keep rolling. We'd go through towns, and they'd cut off roads.
That's crazy.
Just keep going. It was like we were a train of trains, but with trucks. And we were going to this one Walmart. I'm not going to disclose which one because I couldn't if I had to.
There's a lot of conspiracies with Walmart.
So there's some interesting stuff. This was a facility. It was not just a Walmart. It was a real facility. And it was weird because everything about it, there was soldiers there. There were people that were taking licenses as they went up. You got your drop off. You backed into the dock. You'd get rid of your load. You never got to see what was in there. You were hauling, which happens quite often for truckers. We'll pick up a trailer and we never get to look on the inside of it. So you don't even know what you're hauling. So you better hope that your carrier is reputable or else you could be.
You're not hauling 22 tons of cocaine.
Exactly. And it'd be your fault too, because as soon as you get pulled over and they open that up, guess who? They're not going to blame the carrier. They're going to be like, you. Because it happened to me a few times where they were like, you're overloaded. And I didn't have a choice on that. I don't get to see it being loaded. I just have to pick up the load and go. And you got to just hope that they did the correct paperwork. So I'll have paperwork that'll be like, oh yeah, you're only loaded down with 75,000 pounds of toilet paper or whatever. And you go to the scales. They have these things called weigh station badges, and it's like a pre-pass that goes up on your dash, and it has 3 different colors. It's got green, yellow, and red. And as soon as you get up to a weigh station, it'll beep at you and it'll let you know if you've been prepaid to go ahead and go on past the. So if your company is a really big, prestigious company, you don't even get stopped.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so you'll see a weigh scale on the right, and you're about to pull in, and then you'll look up, and it'll be an easy pass that'll show up, and it'll go beep, green, and you just keep going, and you just go right on past that scale. Now, either they've paid somebody to be that person over there, or it's just some weird glitch in the system that they've got. I don't know how they do it, but it's interesting, and that in itself is a conspiracy. But
Yeah.
that was the only conspiracy I've ever seen with my own eyes that was actually true, was this Walmart. I know for a fact that this thing was not normal.
Do you think it was like one of them underground military base things?
I absolutely do.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of that, yeah. And I've also seen where people in the town that live near these Walmarts
are people that work in that facility.
Yeah, and they also have video and stuff of weird noises you can hear down below, and they're like they're drilling under the earth.
Yep.
And, all kinds of crazy stuff.
I'm not gonna knock it. I think that there's things that's happening that we aren't able to look at, and I don't think that they're bad. You hear a lot of people that's like, oh, they're doing just bad stuff down there. I'm like, I mean, just because something's secret doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. I feel
that's
like
true. Yeah,
you could have stuff that's trying to help people, but you can't exactly do it up in the public because people are gonna give you crap about it. But let's just say that some event happens and you need this to be there. Now there's things that they can do to help you. You know what I mean? Because they've planned for this stuff. That's important. I think a country needs to have that kind of back shelf, I don't know what you would call it, off the books programs.
Yeah.
But I think the most interesting one that I have ever seen was definitely the Antarctica.
That's that's not really my subject. That's
I think that one's the best.
Yeah, that's with Dennis Crenshaw and
the only reason I think that one's the best is because there's so many freaking countries that are all together in. And that's kind of insane.
Yep.
Which also kind of begs the question, warfare for itself, is it just a way to kind of like shed some of the people that you have in your
I've heard
country?
that, but look what's happening in China now. They're freaking out. They don't have enough population.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. But that's their fault. They kind of went a little too far on the shedding part.
Did.
So it kind of makes me wonder, well, they also tried a different technique that nobody else had ever done before, killing off the women.
That was stupid of them.
It's so dumb.
Have you seen the Elon Musk stuff where he says there's not enough people in the world right now?
Yeah.
Like in every country?
Right now, there's a big push. I also saw. Now, some of this stuff could be rhetoric. I read something and I have this habit of I'll read it and I'll think, oh, yep, I read it, so it has to be true. Like I'll just accept it in my mind. Like, yep, I read it. It's got to be 100% true. I read it on the internet. Just saying. And but apparently there's a big push for black males to be going to Asia, just all over. And
you're talking about the Passport King stuff?
No, it's something like, I guess it's something like that. They're just running out of people, so they're wanting to mate with black males to have to get their numbers up or their population up.
I haven't heard that one.
Which is interesting because I'm like, I don't know. Just it seems a little
volunteer,
right? Yeah, it just seems a little suspect to me. I don't know. Like, come on over. Our women love you. Like, yeah, I'm not buying that.
Yeah.
Get over there and they're just stabbing you.
Yeah.
He came. He showed up.
Brazil is really bad on women who are actual prostitutes that get on Facebook and they don't tell you they're a prostitute. They act like they're a normal girl and they want to get in a relationship with you.
There.
They get you over there and then, a gang will get you and they will hold you ransom.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. Yeah,
it's bad in Brazil.
And especially that, what is that weird drug that they're doing where it's like they blow it into your face and then you have no control over your body? Like you just do what they say. Have you ever heard of that?
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
Scopolamine, or I think it's what it's called, scopolamine. And
there's a old...
And they blow it in your face. It's like a white powder, but it can only be found in like Brazil and different places like that.
That's not connected with the voodoo and all that, right?
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
So there's this powder. You can they crush it up. It's from a plant. I don't know what plant it is, but I believe it's called scopolamine. And it's like a lot of people are using it for like date rape and horrible moments like that.
Okay,
but there's a lot of people that are emptying people's bank accounts. So they'll blow it into their face, take them to an ATM and say, pull out all your money.
Yeah, because you can give them commands and stuff.
And people are like, yeah, here you go.
Yeah.
It just looks horrible.
That goes back to the MK Ultra stuff. Yeah, so like as humans, we got to be aware of that, man.
Yeah, it's scary stuff. Like I don't. It weirds me out because when I was a kid, I used to smoke a lot of weed, and it was it was like there was this push for us that smoked where we were like, if it's natural, then it's natural, man. You just leave it alone. Why are you trying to regulate it? Well, there's a lot of shit out there that's natural that will kill you.
Licking toads.
You know what I mean?
You lick toads, you're going to die.
It's natural, but it'll kill you. Acid is natural. You fall into an
mushrooms,
acid bag, you're going to die. Like
certain mushrooms can kill you.
Mushrooms can kill you. Like there's those berserker mushrooms that'll send you into a rage. They're natural, I promise you. And
peyote also was used by the Native Americans. It was that cactus.
Yeah.
And it makes you hallucinate. But if you have too much of it, it can kill you.
Yeah. There's some interesting things that go out of context for people that are always like, oh, it's natural. You shouldn't ban it, or that the government should never have any say over anything that's natural. And it's like, what is that one? It's there's a horrible poison that, like, I don't even know if I should even say that. There's a horrible poison out there. Just know that there's a horrible poison out there, and it's natural, and unfortunately it exists. So trust me, I'm okay with them banning certain things.
Well, sugar is natural, and yet they're putting it in all of our food.
Yeah, that one's another weird conspiracy.
American health has just went down the drain, over the so our grandfathers and grandmothers did not eat the same sugars that we eat today at all. Not even close.
Well, especially over in Hawaii, that was like their main export over there was the Dole sugarcane field plantation, and it's littered in slavery, abuse.
Yeah, Hawaii's got a lot of issues.
Just horrible. Like, there's nothing really good about those sugarcane fields, and yet somehow they're looked at as, Hawaii's big resource and all this other stuff.
Yeah, we were talking about conspiracy, so here you go. The governor of Hawaii has to have people who are vacationing to Hawaii to make money. He's making money, he or she's making money off of people coming to Hawaii. So here you go with the conspiracy. Well, all the, that's why they have these ghettos and stuff that the tourists don't see.
Yeah.
There's drugs the tourists don't see.
Right. Well, they see. It's
not all.
Really,
there's some places that are off the beaten path, and they don't always see it. So you can have a conspiracy just with that, because the people who are in charge of Hawaii know it's a problem, but they don't want to talk about it, and they make out like it's not a problem. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that in itself can be a conspiracy.
There's this place out in Hawaii, and it's called Ko'olina, and it's right off of Oahu. It's on the other side of the island. Disney just bought this whole area, and they made like a water park and a little. It's kind of like a themed resort, but it's not actually Disney land. It's not like you can go there and ride on roller coasters or anything like that, but you do have characters that show up, and they make it their own little themed little spot. Well, the problem is that it's on the island where Hawaiians basically aren't able to go, because it's an exorbitant amount of money to go to this. It's not like you could just go out there for free, or it costs a lot of money. So you have Hawaiians who can't get out there and go enjoy something that's on their island. It's kind of a bad deal. And so you have a lot of people protesting it that don't like it, and you'll see a lot of stuff out there. It's kind of shady, and there's a lot of people really just trying to buy out the land from underneath the Hawaiian people, which is
Oprah Winfrey
awful.
bought
it's awful.
Tons and tons of land out there. Yeah,
it's awful, and it's really creepy because you don't see a lot of people standing up and fighting for them more. Because the people who would stand up and fight for them are the rich people who basically are trying to take the land. So it's like they're not going to try to help.
No, I know the whole argument there. They say that
it's weird.
Yeah, they say that the white men have come in and they've made roads everywhere. They've made skyscrapers.
It's interesting because we had when I was a kid, my grandpa used to talk about the war and all this other stuff about, how Pearl Harbor happened. And it was a big deal about Japanese. And it's like probably, I want to say 20, 30, maybe 40% of the island is Japanese now. So it's very weird to me that it's like, you had this huge war that happened, and now there's just like everybody's just best friends, and they're all super cool. And I loved it over there.
Well,
and
Japan.
I love Japanese people,
Yeah.
and it's weird because you wouldn't have been able to tell me that there was something that had happened that I would not like Japanese people. I'm like, I love the culture, I love the people, and it's like
Japan was
that's
going
weird.
through some weird things, though. Like, most people don't understand that Japan was trying to make itself more technologically advanced since about the 1800s. And they did try to, and so there was all kinds of like almost civil war among the Japanese because they were like, we got tradition, and then we got people that are moving towards what the West do.
Right.
So,
which is interesting to me because they had the best, not the best, but the best.
yeah.
They took the worst. So tamahagane is the stuff that they make Japanese katanas out of.
Yeah.
It's the worst type of metal you could possibly do, but they have refined it so amazingly that this stuff is it's the best Japanese steel ever.
Yeah.
Like, which makes me wonder what they could do with pristine, amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you had access to this, this crazy steel that they have now, like what would you be able to do with that? Like what would your swords look like then?
Yeah, I remember reading something about there were some Vikings, and they would try to find meteorites because they thought that meteorites would have some kind of special metal from the gods.
It made it awful, and it's normally it makes it really brittle, and it could be really, really sharp, but it's really, really brittle.
Yeah.
It'll just shatter.
Yeah, have you ever seen the experiments of boiling down human blood to get the iron out of it? Have you ever seen that?
Yes, I have.
That's
I've heard
crazy.
of that. Yeah, it takes
so many bodies.
So many bodies to get. I think it was like, I want to say it's 800 people.
It was a high number.
Make one sword, it would be like 800.
Because you can pull the iron from the blood, and then you can get the iron to the point to where you can like mold it and fashion it. Yeah,
but it's kind of terrifying to know that. Like why
crazy.
do I have this knowledge in my head? You see what I'm saying? This is what I'm talking about. There's no reason for me to know this, and I know this.
It's the sword of 800 souls.
Yes, like
800 people died for that sword.
I believe that is a cursed object, sir.
That's crazy.
There's no reason for you to have this. It's pretty bad, but there's so many things that go in with the MK Ultra that I feel like I'm weirdly a part of. I feel like I know too much. I know weirdly too much. They say that the human body stops being able to take in knowledge.
Well,
not for me.
Here's the thing, though.
I'm moving cells to make more.
So
space. I don't know.
The people at the top that don't want you to know sensitive material, they're going to be pumping disinformation into the media.
But see, that's the thing. I'll take that disinformation and I will enjoy it. I will eat it up.
Oh yeah, it's fun.
And then I will go right.
But how
back
do you know
into
what's
the other
disinformation
stuff.
Versus the truth?
See, this is where I've gotten weird and good at. So I can look at something that's disinformation, and if it doesn't correlate with other things, I just discard it. But like,
well, you'd have to know the goal of each group. Though,
but that's the thing. So like, one, I know how to. It's weird. I know how to drive, do art, weapon mastery. Like, we've done fighting. We've done all these different things. Farming. There's like painting. All of these different skills that I know have different relatable things that you have to learn inside of each one of them. And if I see one of the things that comes down the pipe, right, like somebody says some kind of a disinformation, if it doesn't correlate into one of these things that I can do, I find that it's bullshit. It just doesn't seem right. But now something will come down the pipe and it'll work with every single thing that I have available. And I'm like, oh, this one's real. Like, so then I'll be able to use it and manipulate it and do whatever I need to do.
Okay, so let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. So, like, and I'm not asking anybody to believe. I'm not even asking you to believe my opinion on this.
Okay.
I am of the opinion that our government does not know jack diddly squat about alien life. Okay, and I say that for several reasons. I know for a fact that there have been purposely put out stories involving the military working with aliens for pure disinformation. Okay. The reason for that is because if you are fearful of the idea of there being aliens, the first thing you're thinking of is, are they going to kill us? Are they going to enslave us? Are they friendly? Are they this or that? So as people, we would look to the government. Well, if the government doesn't know anything, what is the government going to do? They're going to pretend like they know everything, and then that's where you get it's my belief that all the stories of aliens working with the human government, or all these stories of these presidents, meeting with aliens, I believe is disinformation.
So for me, here's the reasons why I don't. And I have been like an avid reader on all of this stuff. And since I've been born, I was born in 1980, I have seen and witnessed computers go from the size of houses and buildings, like that would be one computer, to it being able to slim down to the point where it can fit in your pocket.
But that could just be technology that was taken. You see what I'm saying?
From what I have always understood, technology doubles every 50 years. So every 50 years, it does a giant increase. So whatever it can do, it doubles in speed. 50 years, 50 years, 50 years. When I was a child, they told me that the military was 500 years ahead of us. That what they had technology-wise is always 500 years ahead of what the civilization that would
be a lot, though.
It is a lot. But if you think about, like, how does a civilization stay in charge? And it's by doing just that. It has to stay ahead of its people to be able to keep them safe from even themselves if they needed to be. But the reason why I think that we have met aliens is because I'm a welder. I understand metallurgy. There is certain metals we have never had that have just shown up out of the blue only after Roswell incidents and other incidents where they talk about crafts that have crashed. And there's a lot of people who say that these are called, they're not even crashes. They're like gifts to us. Like these creatures, whatever they are, these aliens, what we call them, will send these crafts down and just give them to us as here you go, learn from this. Like, I want you to learn from this. There's no reason for them to crash. Like, now, lately, later, after this had happened, we started shooting them down more frequently. And we're using...
Okay, but if they were gifts and if we were friends with them, why would we be shooting them down?
Well, this is the thing. We were. And if these things wanted to hurt us, they could have done so long ago.
Oh, no, I agree with that.
They're like 1,000 times faster than our ships. They can do speeds that just make no sense. Like if one of our people were inside of one of these crafts, they would just liquefy from a turn at Mach 300, doing a weird bank roll downwards. A dude would just turn into jello. Like, there'd be nothing left of him. But okay, so tinfoil. It sounds really funny. Everybody's always like, "Oh, get your tinfoil hats out."
Yeah.
We didn't have tinfoil until a few years back. Like, it's like only in I think 70s or 80s is when we got tinfoil. And it is a metal that is a full metal.
Well, we've had tin for way before that.
Tin. But tin is very... Have you ever worked with tin?
Yeah.
It's tough. You need these shears. You have to cut it. It's like, you fold it over on itself. It becomes thicker and heavier, and then it's worse. And you're like, oh, God, this is awful. Aluminum foil is insane. It's the lightest thing. It's like... You can have 100 pounds of the stuff, and it's still light as can be. You can fold it onto itself 1,000 folds, and you can turn it into balls. It could be polished. It does some of the weirdest stuff. Like, aluminum foil is amazing. It is a complete alien metal to any other metal that we have. The only metal that we have that's even somewhat close is a thing called gallium. And it's like a metal that will melt in your hand. Have you ever seen that?
No, I've never heard of gallium.
You can literally melt it in your hand, and it'll turn into You ever seen the Terminator movies where you see that? Yeah. That's gallium. So this is weird stuff to me that I know for a fact that these things did not come from this planet.
No, I'm not saying that the technology hasn't expanded. Mm-hmm. But it's the stories. So what sounds cooler? The idea that aliens are giving us gifts, because then you think the government's working with them somehow.
Agreed. I know what you mean.
You know
I
what I
see
mean?
where you're going with this.
But how terrified would the people be if it was let out that the truth is that we don't know anything?
That is. Right,
Like, they can't stop them from getting in the airspace. They can't stop them from
Which is
anything.
true. I mean, but that is the case, though. These things are so fast that we have... Our missile scanners are things that do advanced targeting lock-ons.
Yeah. Can't get them.
Can't lock them on. And then when they do lock them on, you couldn't catch it with a missile even if you tried to. They're just amazed that they're able to catch this thing to get a lock on to it. They're not even worried about firing or to try to...
Right.
Like, so there's a thing called like what we were just talking about. It's advanced targeting control or something like that. It's where your missile control on your plane is so advanced that it will just target and do a pre-shoot. It knows exactly where it should shoot. It'll fire further out. It'll do all these amazing things. It can't even keep up with this thing at all. Like
they defy gravity too.
Completely.
So
there's no engine for the missiles to catch on to, for no heat.
So here's the problem. Here's the problem if you believe that somehow we've got an alliance with them. Right. Whether you want to say it was gifts or we took their stuff.
Right.
You have to say somebody on Earth is in charge of this. So who is it? Is it the military? Is it companies?
Yes, it's companies.
Okay.
And I'm gonna explain.
I would agree with the companies.
And then the reason why I'm gonna say that it's companies and it's not the government is because, I mean, you've got places like Lockheed Martin, that they can do whatever the fuck they want to do. And you can't say a thing to them.
Skinwalker Ranch was taken up by the corporation that was dealing with flight, and they made military planes, but it was under contract.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You can't even say nothing
so
to
there's a lot of stories about them messing with UFOs, but
and for that, we don't even have now. Like, we don't have, like, if any member of our standing Congress, like Senate, President even, wanted to go in and take a look at what's going on in those companies, they don't even have the rights to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Like, literally, those companies can just be like, and kick them right back out the door.
Right. So here's the problem, though. Okay, so say you got companies, and they're under military contract to do things or whatever, so they have some power, but at the same time they're not in the military, and the president and the military cannot tell them what to do. You literally got, like, I don't know, like the Umbrella Corporation from Resident Evil. Okay,
so
literally, they can do whatever they want.
Exactly, those exist right now.
So here's the problem. Say that they, a lot of people say Velcro was an alien thing, and they got Velcro from an alien crash. Just say that under the theory that aliens gave us this thing, okay? In other words, we didn't steal it from them, they gave it to us. What happens to that corporation or that company or the CEOs when they're like, oh, well, they also got anti-gravity engines? Right. The first thing that's going to happen is that we're going to want it.
Which we do now. We want it now.
There's got to be a trade. So you first of all have to figure out what is it that the aliens would want that we could trade for it. And then the other problem is that like humans, like companies and stuff like that, and humans, we're going to be greedy at the end of the day. Like the way you run a company is you have better stuff than the other group. Right. So how would you have a company that had full blueprints to, let's say just anti-gravity, okay? Just straight up an anti-gravity machine. They could make it, they could put it in a car, motorbikes, whatever. They could make skateboards from Back to the Future and hoverboards, whatever. So let's just say they only had that technology. What are they going to do? Are they just going to sit on it? Like, because we're not seeing it with our own eyes in military use. How could you keep it under wrap? You see what I'm saying?
Well, again, I can go back to a couple reasons why I know this to be true. We have people who have come up with engines to this day, and if it goes against certain company ordinance or company secrets or company business standards, the company will outright win and will shut down the little man's invention.
Yeah, so like the engines that run on water.
So there is actually a thing that we have in our government which is called the Invention Secrecy Act. And it is a thing that our government created that they can, let's just say you come up with a cool invention that's going to change the world, government can just take it. They have no qualms, no problems, no nothing. There's no laws that on the books that say that you have rights to what your information is. You come up with a cool ass idea, awesome, cool, thank you. Snatch, it's ours now. Now they will give you a fair price that they consider fair to you until you go on about your day. Now, if that's still not good enough for you, you die. That's literally how that works.
Take the money.
Right. Just take the money and shut up.
Take the money.
There was a guy who made a water engine, just happened to just die of some kind of weird poison or nobody knows why he died.
There's been several people that's done this.
Yeah. So there's plenty of experience that we have for this to be true. And we've got plenty of stories, enough stories to where we have a patent office, right? Like we have a patent office now that has patents that are insane, that could help us out tremendously, that could literally change the world as we know it.
No, I would agree with that.
And those are all hidden and off the books. People
I would agree with that
these
to
patents,
a point, yes.
They will buy these patents and they will shelf them. Now, it's not just to shelf them, just to shelf them. Now, here's where I'm with you in a certain extent. They will shelf a product. Sometimes we look at it as, oh, it's the alphabet people, CIA, FBI, all these different things. We'll say all these different things like it's conspiracy. They're shelving the product for this. No, 90%, I'll say 99% of the time, they're shelving a product because, like, I'll give you a perfect example. Band-Aids was a big thing. There is so many Band-Aids in existence right now that they shelved the product that was going to revolutionize this technology. There is a liquid Band-Aid that's just hit the market a few years back that you can do. Like if you get shot, you could pour this stuff right into any wound.
Like liquid stitches, liquid Band-Aid.
And it turns right into human skin. It literally just turns right back. But we're only getting drips of it right now. So right now, just here recently, they came out with a liquid skin that actually, it looks like super glue. You pour it into a wound and it's still kind of nasty. You know, it heals you, but not as fast as like the real stuff does. So the real stuff, you could pour it straight into a wound and it just turns back into skin. Like there's no, like you wouldn't even know that you've been shot. We have this available now, but we have so much stock in Band-Aids, tissues, the bandages, the wraps. That's $1 trillion business. Trillions of dollars.
Okay. So
massive industry.
That's where you're arguing that the company is only doing it for the supply and demand.
Well, 99% of that happens like
so that. What happens when a new company comes out and says, hey, we got something better? I don't know. They create nanotechnology that heals you.
They will literally kill the company. And they've done it several times. There's been times where we have gadgets that are so far ahead of their time that a rich company will be like, I'm going to buy you out. I'm going to take this technology and I'm going to shelf it. We just bought it just to buy it, and they'll shelf it, and they won't even have it come out.
I know that. Elon Musk has actually done it a couple times.
Few times. And like I said, take the money, shut up, go on about your day. Because if the other extreme end of that, you just don't get to have your product, plus you die. So that happens quite often. So like, I love conspiracies because these are the things that we actually get to know about. So like a conspiracy is like, it's had enough time to filter through a few different branches of people to where it's gone its way to where it's now to us to where we can actually talk about it.
Yeah, no, I love conspiracies too, yeah.
There is stuff up there in the cloud that we can't even get access to at all. Like it dies off before it dies off. Like, you know what I mean? They kill entire towns over this stuff. Like, especially propulsion systems, things like that, cloaking technology.
But what I'm saying is, if there was a company that had something that beats everything else out on the market, you think that they just kill them?
They'd just kill them.
Every time.
They would pay them or kill them, yes. Every time.
So my argument would be, you have corporate spies. Corporations spy on other corporations all the time. They do that all the time.
Right.
So if you had a corporation that had some high technology stuff, even if they didn't have it, they shelved it, in other words, but they had the blueprints, somewhere along the line, somebody else, they have to get that. They have to let it be known. So if you had like a big company like Johnson & Johnson, they're massive, and they come out with something that's, in their area medically, and it's something that blows the minds of everybody else, you think they just get rid of it?
Well, I don't think they'd get rid of it. I think they would hold it back for 50 to 100 years until the time comes that all of their resources that they've put in towards the like let's say bandages.
But I'm talking about the new, say like Johnson.
Like they have a new technology, right? But yet they've got so much stock invested in these other technologies. They'll wait and hold this onto the shelves until they'll do what is called a provisional patent, right? And a provisional patent makes it to where if let's say they have the idea to do it, let's say I come up with something that's close to what they just did, they can sue me, shut my whole entire company down because I'm about to come to market with something that they already have available.
Right, but I'm not talking about the genius inventor. I'm talking about like a full company.
Full company. I'm talking about full companies. They have top lawyers that literally will shut down your whole thing. They'll do like there's a, I forget what it's called, but it's like it's a product stopping ability. It's like, so if you're about to come to market, you've got a full company, whole building, you bought, let's say you got a couple of buildings and you got this amazing product that's about to come out. My lawyers will literally give you a cease and desist. You cannot come or bring this to market. Now, let's say if you do bring this to market, not only can they sue you, remove the product that was there, which we have several times where we've seen that, where the product will actually be on shelves, it will disappear, and you can no longer talk about this technology. Remember laser tag back in the day?
Yeah.
How amazing laser tag was? Yeah. The original laser tag.
They got a new thing now.
So badass. Like, dude, right now, you can go to these little laser tag rooms that are inside of these, like the mall and different things. And these are expensive units. They're not even close to as cool as the ones we had when we were kids.
That's true.
They took that technology off and was like, nope, this is going to this.
Well, they did that because there were some, in the 80s, there were some kids that were mistakenly killed. I don't know how you think it's a real gun.
Exactly. They got killed.
Yeah, they got killed by cops or even neighbors. Yeah. Because I remember that went around. And I remember my mom threw a fit. She was like, I don't want you being outside with that thing. And I'm like,
if you could find the old videos, the old commercials of the laser tag, it was so good. They were like James Bond kids, and they were all around in the park, and they were just like,
yep.
And they had who could give the best death scene? Like they would get shot right in front of a library. And like just do the whole. It was so good. It was so good. Oh man.
Yeah, I remember that. They do have at Walmart. I seen it a while back. It was like a new brand. It's pretty much laser tag, but it's a new
laser
brand.
tag, but it's new. And then and they had movies that was based off of it. I remember there was like one Zapped or something like that.
Yeah, it was like, I think it was called Zapped.
And it was a laser tag, but they were going around, they were killing each other, and it was like so just over the top spy espionage type of deal. But I love it. I loved it.
Okay, so but getting back to the companies though, so like every company has an R&D.
Yes, research and development.
Yeah. So like how would you construct? And like, if you believe that they're all shelving technology, it's too high.
Remember, I said,
why even have an R&D department?
Well, because
you know what I'm saying?
Well, because they still want to learn new technologies, and because they still want people to have growth. So, like, remember what I said: the government is 500 years ahead of civilization. Mm-hmm. So, like, your civilization might be behind, but there's still some products that will come from this being behind that the government didn't have either the time or resources to be able to figure out. So like we used the phone, right? And the phone was the phone. It was literally a phone that was on your wall. You had the cord, you know,
you had a landline.
There's a lot of tech that came from that later that was built in the civilian infrastructure. So like we had like call zappers. I don't know if you remember those.
Yeah, I remember.
If a person tried to like give you, some telemarketer was calling you, it would answer and lock and destroy the call before it ever got to you. That's a technology that was built by our civilian population that the government didn't even have. So they bought it, killed that off, took that away. Like,
well, I know the internet was being used by the military ages before civilian.
Like 500 years. This is what I'm saying. Like, so they had this tech way before it ever got to us. And so for us, we see it as like, let's say we were soldiers, so we know how shitty the implementation of stuff that we have might not be up to par. Like we'll see a lot of stuff and people will say, "Oh yeah, 500 years? Yeah, right. We were there. We know that it's not 500 years." Trust me, there's rooms where they have the technology. They just don't give it to the soldiers.
When I was in the Army,
even the soldiers are liabilities for it to get out.
Yeah, when I was in the Army, we were playing with this set. I can't remember the name of it, but we were being trained with it, and you had a satellite
the
above you.
monocle that went on your eye.
Yeah.
I know exactly
and
what you're talking about.
You could see a bird's eye view of
everything down.
Yes,
below.
your
I
whole
remember
squad.
exactly what you're talking about.
You could see through the thermals. It was crazy.
That got taken away so fast. So fast, and it was probably one of the best things. And I remember people saying, if you didn't pass this program with that monocle, you wouldn't even get into the military. Like they were going to say that's how far they were going to take it. It was going to be you had to practice with this monocle.
Yeah, well, they never told me that, but and I also know that they have like their version of a ray gun that they shoot.
Yep.
And there's no sound or nothing. It looks like a satellite dish, and it makes you feel like you're being set on fire. And they're calling it riot control now. And there's videos on YouTube.
I've seen videos on it. Yep. Awesome technology.
Yep. I don't know why they don't come out with,
handheld versions of it. Yeah, you would think, but
because it would be better than mace, because supposedly it can't kill a person.
That's
and
what
it makes them want to run away.
Again, this goes with the technology that they've spent billions of dollars on guns. I mean,
well, I see where the NRA would come in here.
Right. You've got companies that are basically lobbyists that pay billions, almost trillions of dollars in revenue of just, I need to pass this law to keep more guns out there because I have companies that are breathing down my neck to pass these laws so they can bring out their new line of weapons that are the XR 400 manslayer rocket launching, dick attacking. It just goes straight to you. Like it just literally, these bullets they're scary, They melt your flesh from fucking a mile away. These products will get snuffed and held back because other companies are bigger and hold more. You got to think, let's say I'm a company, I'm this small company. I could even be a big company, but I want to bring this thing to market. Mm-hmm. If it takes over everything, why? Like if I bring out a ray gun, right? That doesn't take bullets, doesn't take any kind of thing. I don't need to reload it. It literally just fires when I pull the trigger. It's forever, and it's made out of a metal that never corrodes, never rusts. It's a forever gun. Think about how many industries you just took out of business.
That's true.
That's the bullet company, the casing makers, the people who put the screws into the gun, the freaking sights, every little piece of that has an industry that's attached to it, and it has companies that are attached to it. When they all get together, they make a really powerful fist that says, fuck your little cool gun that you just came out with. Like,
I can see that happening as an example.
Especially car companies. Car companies are the worst. They have been snuffing out inventions for forever. Yeah. There was Treadstone with the tires. There was, every year there's always a better tire that comes out.
Well, cars is a funny thing because what I've noticed is
water engines.
That if you go back in time,
the cars were so much better.
They had less parts too.
So much less
parts.
They
didn't break down as much. But now today it's like they sell you a car and it has to have parts and fuses and pieces and circuits.
I love the thought process of the fake Nikola Tesla cars. Mm-hmm. Everybody's like, "Oh, let's drive a Tesla." I'm like, "Why do you even call it a Tesla? It's a fake Tesla. Like if it was a real Tesla, it wouldn't need, what is it? 1,000 pounds of batteries. Like it wouldn't need any of that. It would be a self-energizing car that never needs to stop, that just drives forever."
Well, but I don't believe that Elon Musk I don't believe he has the patent to a better blueprint. I really don't.
No.
And there might be a lot of reasons for that.
He talks about it. Yeah, he's said it openly. He said, look, the battery technology is just not there yet. He's like, right now we have the best batteries to market, and he builds his own batteries. So that's impressive in itself. But Nikola Tesla wasn't a fan of batteries. He wanted free energy to everyone. It's a totally difference of opinions from Tesla to that. And it's kind of almost a slap in the face. It's almost a slap in the face that you've got this guy who calls his vehicle the Tesla, and he's selling it for what, like almost $100,000 a car.
Yeah, they're too expensive.
Yeah, and it's like, this is night and day from what Tesla would have loved. Like, you know, people are like, oh, he would have loved this. No, he wouldn't. Tesla wanted to give energy to the world, and I think he was shut down and killed for that.
What I would give, though, to see what the FBI took from his home.
Oh man,
you know,
all of the things
they took
and
experiments and blueprints.
I have heard that they lost a lot of it because the governments were trying, like, and when I say governments, because we don't just have one government, and I think that's a thing a lot of people need to understand as well. There's so many branches that don't answer to each other. Yeah. Like, they're all together, but they don't answer to each other. So one will, like, if the Army wants it, the Army will pay top dollar. The Navy is actually our oldest branch, so I think that they have the most money. I'm not sure.
I thought the Marines were the oldest branch.
No, the Marines are actually younger. Yeah. So the Navy was the first branch we ever had. Yeah. It's basically the colonizing ships that we had, you know what I mean? So then you have the Marines are the fighters that came off of that, but then you have the Army, I think, was the second branch. Yeah, I don't think the Marines came until third. Then you had the Air Force when we started getting flying vehicles after that. Then you had...
We got Space Force now.
Space Force up now. So, like...
I haven't heard anything on that, though. That's weird.
Yeah, so, like, I think it's funny because I remember when I joined the Navy, everybody was like, oh, we're the oldest branch and people blah, blah, blah. And it was just like a big thing that they love to put in your face. Like, oldest branch. Like, did I tell you it was the oldest branch?
Have to have, you have to have that cheerleading and that morale, you know.
I love that. I don't know. It was funny. I got to Great Lakes and it was on everything. Oldest branch. Did you? All right. Thanks. Yeah, it's one of those things that I think technologies, for the most part, are hidden back, but not for the reasons we think. I think that one day we won't need so many rules in place, and that people will be a lot better on the use of things. And I think that there's even been. I'm not 100% on this, and this is also a conspiracy theory in itself. There is a land called Tartaria. Have you ever heard of the Tartarian people?
No, I've not.
Apparently, they are a people who have been disassembled from time. They took them completely off the map. There was maps that used to say where Tartaria was, and there was a whole thing, infrastructure, buildings, things like that were Tartarian buildings. They are gone. And people moved into these buildings and basically acted like they built the building. And it's like, you'll see the Tartarian, like, infrastructure and symbolisms at the top of the buildings, like where they have multiple roofs that come down to, like, you'll see that's Tartarian. There's like, you'll see these weird little balls on the top of a building, and it'll be like a little steeple, but then it'll have a little ball at the top. Looks like we think that it's a lightning rod, but it's not really what that is. It's actually, they used a different type of, their civilization used a different type of energy source, and that's how they gave it to each one of the buildings. It's really unique and interesting that the whole thing disappeared, though. Like, that's the part I wanted to make about this. Like, the whole civilization's gone. Like, you can't, like, nobody talks about it. Like, you can look it up right now. There's all these different things where people are just now starting to, like, talk about the Tartar, and it's
I've never heard him. I'll have to get into that.
Yeah, everybody's like, oh, it's just a conspiracy theory. It doesn't actually exist. And it's like the buildings are there. Like, you can see it.
That's how you know you need to go study.
You need to study it, right? When they tell you it's just bullshit.
Well, so okay, so like, how do you feel about the idea that ancient humans had sophisticated technology?
I think you'd have to be a fool to not see that.
Right. Like, yeah, I completely subscribe to it.
Like, I don't understand how people, because one, they didn't have any of the, like, distractions that we have today. Like, most of their distractions were like, I need to know the geosynchronous orbit of the stars that are happening 20 years from now. Like, how are you figuring this out? It makes no sense. So, like, their distractions were like amazing distractions. Like,
well, there's stories of them going to the moon. There's stories of civilizations.
I've seen so much cool stuff, like so much cool stuff. And I don't think that they used propulsions like we use today, though. That's the difference. I think that they used teleportation and just showing up at a spot. versus
that would be pretty cool.
Because only reason I say that is because we only had the understanding of propulsion as much as we understood it. Like when you see like the old Aztec buildings, like there's an Aztec drawing of a guy who's like sitting in what looks like some kind of a cockpit. He's like,
I know what you're talking about.
He's sitting there in this cockpit.
My friend Walter has a big painting of that.
Yeah, it's awesome. So like,
it looks like a spaceship.
When we look at that, we're seeing what we see, and the person who drew that, he drew what he saw. You know what I mean? So he's trying to understand and conceptualize, like, this is what this is. But technically, he wouldn't know because he's never, never been in it. So he's just doing the best he can. When we see these images, the images are basically like a rough understanding. Like, so there's several biblical, I do the air quotes every time I do that, biblical, like, but there's several biblical texts that talk about flying saucers, but they don't talk about it as a flying saucer. They talk about it as a sun, and you'll see like in the depictions of the images, it'll be a sun. It'll look like an actual sun. It'll be round. It'll have little like the sun rays that are coming off.
You're talking about the Merkabah, yeah.
Yeah, and these things were moving in the text. You'll have them here. They'll be over there. They'll come over here, and
they were some. There's stories of that even in Judaism of somehow like people getting into and they were like chariots in the sky, basically. And then that's how they quoted them. They talk about them because you wouldn't call them a flying machine,
right?
But so if you look at technology today, I mean, if World War III broke out tomorrow and everybody nuked everybody and the human population had to start all over again, we'd start off at scratch again. And some people,
you said it perfectly. Again.
How
many times has this happened?
Who knows?
That's exactly what I was going to make my point at. The only thing we know of is that the Sumerian people are kind of our first starting point of trying to understand that this was a civilization. Anything you go back before that, I don't think it has any, like, there's probably some things before that, but you don't have any real like calendar.
Well, Babel was before Samaria, but Samaria was really well known for its languages and its laws. But Babel was the
Tower of Babel
civilization
that went
before
up.
that. Yeah,
but they don't have any of the constructs left to be able to tell us what happened at Babel.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, as far as Sumerian is the kind of quintessential, this is a civilization. We have studies and things that can show us that, like, they had writing, they had arithmetic, they had all the things that showed that this was a place. Babel, I'm 100% sure that it is a thing, but we just don't have any, like, there's no way to like read their writing. We can't. It's a completely dead language. There's no.
Well, there is stories because I've read a lot of them.
Yeah.
Talking about Babel and Samaria and things like that, and even Egypt.
Yeah.
And the way they describe their technology is that there was like an element of using magic and rituals with this. It wasn't just technology. To them, magic and technology was the same thing.
Same thing, yeah. And that's how I feel about science and mysticism. So like when we talk about like religion, I think that science and religion should be married.
Oh yeah.
But a lot of people don't. A lot of people are like, science is science, and they'll be like, I trust the science. I don't trust your faith. Your faith, you can keep your faith. I'm going to keep my science. And then there's a lot of people that's like, I'm going to keep my faith. You can keep your science. And I think they should be married and should be together. But a lot of people.
Well, there's probably mad scientists today that are doing some very illegal, shady stuff that we don't even know about.
And this is the reason why I think they should be married, because, if you make something of science, you're going to make something kind of dark and cringy because you don't have the marriageness of like having a faith behind it to keep you on a better track.
Yeah, morals
of what you're going to do. Yeah, with that. So that's kind of like
anything in technology. But anything made though could be used as good or bad. Anything.
Yeah, anything. So, everything.
But yeah, I mean, somebody could. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure they've been cloning humans and been doing crazy stuff with that. But
and that goes with what we were talking about earlier today. Me and him was having this conversation about the faceless men, and I think that this is one of the subjects that I can't wait to have a podcast on this one. I'm not sure when it started, but there was a time when masks were cheesy and big and clunky, and you had this wooden mask that would go on your face, and I'm not sure when it happened, but there was a change where VFX masks started to emerge, and I think that that's an alien technology as well. I don't think that that's because it came too fast. It just showed up and it was perfect.
Yeah, it seems like especially if you look at like
if you look
Halloween
at the effects,
the Halloween outfits in the 60s and 50s
were trash. They were horrible. They were just a big plastic thing that just like smelled nasty, was stuck on your face. It was
okay. So my view of that is when I look at them, it's like the artist that's making them wants you to know it's not a real person just at first glance.
Right.
But now when you look at the special effects masks, it's like they want you to think that this thing is real.
It's so dead on.
But
it's so dead on. It's like, it's scary how crazy that stuff is.
Right.
Like they can make flesh that looks and feels almost 100% right.
Yeah,
like it's terrifyingly scary. Because I mean, you got to think that you're messing with stuff that's like, some biblical people will say that's kind of crazy because you're basically making a golem. It is, and I know you'll know that term.
Golem is not a human in disguise, but yeah.
No. I mean, I'm saying like it's fake flesh. It's like fake. It's
the whole idea. Yeah, the golem is something that's one of my subjects. But the golem is supposed to be a creature that you create, you give life to it,
and it becomes like a protector.
It's like a servant or whatever. Yeah. But there's a lot of stories that are scary in history that lend truth to it.
Yep.
Like
I feel the same way with dragons.
Prague is huge. Yeah, dragons is definitely. But Prague had a whole story of a king that couldn't keep the Jews under control in the ghettos, and he was like killing them. And this one rabbi was like, "Okay, fine, I'm gonna make a golem." And he makes a golem, and according to the story on both sides, this golem was like mowing down the king's men. Like they couldn't kill it. But in the story, the golem grows, and it starts off as like a child's mind, and it starts to learn and learn and learn. And the rabbi that made it had to put it to sleep. And because the king made a literal decree that he would leave the Jews alone if the rabbi put the golem to sleep. Yeah. But the problem is there's still a decree there. And if you go to Prague today, you can search up Prague on the internet. There's like coffee shops that have like golem statues. There's T-shirts they're selling with golems. Like it's their thing.
That's insane.
It's like if you go to Portsmouth, West Virginia, their thing's the Mothman.
Yeah.
It's like Mothman's everywhere. Yeah. Yeah.
That's one of those things that I feel like people nowadays don't really understand just how far things are hidden from them, like in plain sight, like what we were talking about, though. Yeah. Like with that Tartaria place that I was telling you about, the technology's there. You can see it. It's literally there. Like, who really took advantage of it but didn't is India. India has all of their buildings, all of their structures, they have things called Vajras, and they're supposed to be these weapons. They can't turn them on.
Oh yeah, well yeah. If you study India's history and you study some of their religious stuff,
they've got all these cool tech, and they don't know how to use it. They don't know where it came from. They don't, but they try to claim that it's their people, but just their people over time had forgot how to use it. No, it's just, it was a whole nother. There was a whole nother civilization there.
Yeah, in their religious books, if you read their old religious books, it sounds like Star Wars.
Yeah, it does. Like they had battles in space. Yeah. There's these giant ships that happen. The big story about like Enki and Anu, like those are the ones that I really thought was really interesting, because there was this one. I don't even know where I heard it. I would see. This is what I'm talking about. I know too much, and I'm gonna get killed because of it. But there was this being a long time ago, and I don't know. I want to say it's Amen Ra, but it's not. It's something else like that. But the guy's name was Amen, and he was so powerful that he had conquered the entire world at some point throughout our history. But he didn't do it by violence. People wanted him to rule. They wanted him to take charge because the world was kind of in chaos. And he said, okay, cool. And because he was a man, he could only live so long, but he had a perfect rule. On his deathbed, he asked that when he passes, that you remember him. The only thing he wanted was just that if in remembrance of him, he wanted you to say at the end of a prayer, Amen. And that was the guy's name. So when we pray today, everyone does it. At the end of a prayer, they say Amen, but they don't know the meaning behind it, and they don't know where it came from.
I've never heard that.
So like when you hear somebody pray, at the end of every prayer, everybody always goes, Amen. But nobody knows where that came from. So like
that might be something that somebody might have made up though. Because
interesting story. Like I said, this is just an interesting story. That there's no reason for me to know this. And then,
well, I can tell you where Amen comes from.
Well,
so in Hebrew, you don't say Amen. You say Amen, and
right.
It's spelled Amein.
But that's an Egyptian word.
No, it's not Egyptian. It comes from Hebrew, and it's
Name
a phrase.
another Hebrew word that has Amen in it, like ever. That's an Egyptian word. Like
no. It
Amen Ra, Amen.
No,
like,
it comes from a phrase, and it means El Melechah Nehiman.
Right,
and that means God will make it so. So you're praying, and then you used to say El Melechah Nehiman, and that means make it so, or so it'll be, or God will make it happen.
And again,
and they shorten that. But if you take the phrases, because a lot of times in Judaism, things that are phrases become a word.
But also, if you look at those words, some of those words are Egyptian. Like those are Middle Eastern words. Like you can hear it in the phrases
Hebrew is
when
completely
you say
different from Egyptian. Yeah, most of the linguists don't even know how to.
But think about
speak half of the Egyptian.
But think about it. You had the Egyptian people in the biblical texts of all of them, where they talked about Pharaoh, let my people go. Like this was a thing. Like,
but they had their own culture, though.
Yeah, but I mean, yes, but there were still words that like transcend all of them, and then it just becomes so. Like we're American. We have certain words.
Like Gesundheit, everybody, and it's German.
But it's a German word, but we all use it. Like, so everybody had a civilization that had a word that coexists before the civilization. It's just like a term of endearment that came together as a thing.
No, I know what you're getting at. Yeah,
when you hear certain words, you can just kind of just hear where it's from. I think anyway. I don't know. All I know is that that's a really cool story. I love the story behind it, that there was this king that was so powerful that this is all he ever wanted. His only thing that he asked from his people is that you remember him after a prayer. And that was,
I've never heard that. It's interesting.
I think it's a cool story. I was like, how could somebody take that away from the guy? Like, that's so cool. That needs to be in a history book somewhere. If that was
but why would you pray to, if you knew he was just a human and like a great king?
No, it's like to say, like, you know how whenever somebody, I'll give you an example of it. When someone says, I think it even happens in your religion too. Like when somebody says one of these high elders, you'll say like, not just peace be upon them, but you'll say like a prayer with it when you say their name.
Yeah, like if we're talking about like King David will say of blessed memory.
See,
yeah,
and that's, I think there's Muslim has that same thing with
their
they
elders.
Do that
too. But
and that this is kind of like that. It's kind of like a way to just like he wanted a prayer upon when you say his name. Like so when you prayed, that was his one thing. He wanted like you to say like, "Hey, I did a good job." Like tell God that I'm on my way to see him, so like let him know.
I've never heard that, but
I think it's interesting. I really find that one is one of those like that's a conspiracy I would love to get to the bottom of, but I don't think that I would ever be able to, because I think that the trail passes away with time. Like,
well, I do know that a lot of the linguistics who are studying Egyptian, they do not know half of the stuff they have.
Not even half. Not even half.
Yeah, the hieroglyphics.
It's not even a quarter of the stuff that's there.
So they have entire plaques of like hieroglyphics, and they don't even know what it's talking about.
So you know that they just recently came out with this new AI device that basically scans any hieroglyphic and can reads it like instantly. Like,
no,
just
I've never
came
seen
out.
that.
It's badass. Like I'm so.
If anybody figures it out, it'd be AI.
Yes, yeah. I'm enthralled by this. And there is a tech right now that they can scan a whole entire room, and it tells you everything that's going on with it. Not only does it do that, but there's an imaging processor that goes with it. Mm-hmm. Like I'll show you these cameras later when we're off air. When you turn them on, there's like this weird. It looks like Aliens movie. So like when you scan something, it scans all the stuff behind you, and then it scans forward, and then you'll see it go over your face, and you'll see it go like all the way to the tip of your nose, and like it shows like a depth of field.
Yeah.
That's what this thing does, but it does it for sand and hieroglyphics. I was like, dude, that's crazy, awesome. Yeah. It's awesome. But the reason I was saying that was to say that there was that one king, David, right? Was the main king. Wasn't that the one?
Well, yeah, I mean, we've had many kings throughout Jewish history.
Who was better than that king? Like, that was like the best king of all time, right? Like, that people know
That's the way a lot of people would say. I mean, we had Josiah as a king, and then we had Cyrus as even a king for a little while.
So that's Solomon. What I'm saying. So there's, I want to say it's an Egyptian
David
person,
would be the most known and beloved, I think.
Is that Solomon? David Solomon?
Solomon was David's seventh son, but he was considered his firstborn because he was with Bathsheba.
So is of that line then. So,
yes.
So that kind of feels like where I'm going with that. Like, it's wherever this story came from, it's like there was a line of kings back in the day. That was one of them, and he was like a ruler of some sort, and he had ruled the entire world. Like, whereas the closest we have to anybody that's ruled the entire world is Alexander the Great.
Mm-hmm.
He ruled closely about 70% of the world. That's pretty freaking far. And he's the only one so far that I know of that's called great at the end of his name because of that. Like,
yeah.
That's a big deal. Like, apparently, like, that's, like, now imagine someone who ruled the entire world. At some point,
I don't know of any civilization that ever had control over the whole world. I mean,
I've heard stories of like, there was pharaohs that did, but it's kind of like it's up in the air for that. Like,
well, they wouldn't have any pull in China or parts of Asia and even parts of Russia.
You would think that, but there is like there is talk. There is like manuscripts from Asia that have like there was a king back then that had lions, and the only place to get lions was Africa, so there was no way that they could have lions there. They have tigers.
Well, it was a normal thing, though, to give your king, like, treasures
gifts,
from
that's
faraway
what I'm saying.
lands.
So, like, that's kind of where it was. Like, there's this emperor from way back in the day that said that there was a king that visited. They have, like, I don't know what it is. It's like these tablets that are, like, made out of jade or something. You've heard of these, right? So, apparently there's more than just one. Are you
talking about the emerald tablets?
No. So the emerald tablets of Thoth is a cool one, but there's so many more. So apparently there's like, that's one of many. So the emerald tablets of Thoth, there's the jade tablets of whatever this king's name was. There's one that's called what was it? Why can't I think of it? It's the tablet of time, the tablet of the tablet of deeds, tablet of time, the tablet of knowledge, the tablet of so there's like several of them.
Well, I know about the emerald tablets of Thoth, but I don't know about the other ones.
So the way that this goes, this is a whole nother. We're getting down the list now today, boys. We're getting in there. So Thoth had the tablet of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And that was his thing. It is an indestructible tablet made out of what they think is jade. Jade happens to be one of the strongest elements that we have on our planet. The tablets themselves were not carved, but it's like the words and things on it were laser etched before we had lasers.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the level of...
Well, they say that about the Ten Commandments too with Moses.
Well, I've heard that, but then you would have those around. Like you would.
They're supposed to be in the Ark right now.
Right. You would think that there would be around, but the tablets of Thoth is actually you can actually see those. They're in a museum. So like, there's people who actually are trying to study these. Like they cannot be destroyed. You cannot break them.
I've never heard that.
They've been put in fire. The different types of things. Like there's literally a metallurgy that doesn't even work on them. Like it's ridiculous. So much so that they don't know that it's even made on this planet. Like it's like the tablets just existed. Like they just were there. Like, and apparently there's one that's about your deeds. Like, so all the deeds of man will be etched in this one tablet. There's one about time. all of the annals of time will be etched into this, like what's going to happen. There's like a whole project that happens with this. It's called something mirror, where they took a thing and they learned from it, and now they can actually do a projection of time over it's a project that they did like in the military. It's called something looking glass or something like that, where they can look forward in time.
Yeah, Project Looking Glass is something different. Yeah,
they can look in time for like a few. I don't want to say it's like more than a day, but I think it's like a day or two or something.
Yeah,
like
it was the idea that if they put a telescope out in space and they're able to look out into a far distance to get a reflection of the Earth, you could see back in time.
Right. So they're thinking that you would be able to see, because time doesn't actually persist the way that we think that it does.
Right.
And okay, so that's one of them. Apparently there's like your deeds, which is like the one that I like the best, which is like supposedly, if you think about it, they talk about St. Peter writes in the tablet of your deeds. So that's like supposed to be when you pass away. There's this dude that's sitting up there that
what would St. Peter have to do with all these tablets?
No. I'm saying that this is like the story that I have heard is that there's St. Peter, when you pass away, he will write down in a book of your deeds.
Oh yeah, that's
which is interesting that there's this tablet that's supposed to be like this, and then there's supposed to be a story that goes with that, where there's a guy that when you pass away that writes in your deeds. I think that's interesting. Like there's
we have that in Judaism too. We call it the Book of Life.
See, there you go.
Yeah.
I actually have that one right there.
Yep.
Book of Life. There's
it's a metaphoric thing, but it's supposed to be literal. Somewhere there's a book of life, and like God is supposed to have your name in the book.
Yep.
And
and I absolutely have
the Emerald Tablets of Thought.
It's literally one of my favorite books.
Yep.
So just letting people know, like I study this stuff. So like there's some really cool stuff on this topic.
I've just never heard that it was indestructible.
If I could find more of this type of knowledge, I would just absorb it. Like I am so fascinated by it.
Yeah, I was a key member. I was an adept in the Esoteric Order of the Golden Dawn, and I worked with Robert Zink, and the whole Golden Dawn was very heavy into the Emerald Tablet of Thoth. I'm just wondering if whatever they put in here. I do know that there's a lot of disinformation about what it was, but the Emerald Tablet.
You have a lot of things that's going to talk about, it's just like when we was talking about your Merkaba. Like there's a lot of people who know about, when you have pyramids that go up and down at the same time and it coincides with each other, that's the Merkaba. But it's like understanding that like some people believe that the pyramids in Giza are actually like one part of a giant Merkaba, like that they were trying to make a Merkaba.
I've heard all kinds of stuff about Egypt. Yeah,
and that there's a pyramid on every continent, and that there's a pyramid on every continent.
Yeah, that's true though. Yeah,
so it's
there's
bigger
even one
than
on Mars.
Mm-hmm.
So are they?
So it's bigger than what they're talking
here's
about.
what I don't understand about this book. Yeah. So when I was studying the book of the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, it was 13 phrases.
Yeah.
And this whole book is acting like it's
a lot bigger.
Literal book.
Yeah, if you see the tablets of Thoth, like they're a lot bigger than 13 phrases. I mean, it's massive.
So the way that we were explained it is that it was 13 phrases, and almost all of them had to do with manifestation. Like literally all of them had to do with manifestation, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much.
And there was 13 laws. So I've never read this book. It's interesting, but I do know that from what we were being studied, that the Emerald Tablet was supposed to be way older than even Egypt. So they called it the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, but that was their god of knowledge, more or less.
Yeah, when you see this, it's like this is an actual tablet that exists right now that you can look at. I mean, I'm just showing you a thing here, but this is basically what it looks like. It's a lot more than 13 different quotes on it, but each one apparently is numerically put counter, so you can read it.
Well, but there's been a lot of counterfeits too, though. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying. So like,
that.
You can read it this way, you can read it this way, you can read it this way, you can read it this way. Like all of the different ways that it can be read read backwards, forwards, up and down. So it's like time itself had worked.
It's a code
with
in it.
It's a codex
Yeah.
inside of a codex.
Yeah.
And the words themselves are basically, so you know how numbers were created, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a really cool story with the numbers too. So like, if you know masonry, Masons apparently had some hand in making the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So because like the way that they work is like, so 1 is 1 angle, 2 is actually 2 angles, right? So like it'll show the symbol of 2, like, and it goes and so on and so on. So 3 is literally 3 angles, 4 is 4 angles.
Well, the numbers originally, even in Samaria, that they didn't just mean a number; they also represented something else. They usually represented a like an animal or an idea. That's also the way Hebrew is too.
There's another thing we're going to be talking about right here. So
yeah, we're gonna have to do that on another show because like there's so much information on that. Yeah, that's me walking out in the field with the boogeyman.
The boogeyman.
Yeah, but I didn't see anything. Like, I mean, and here's another thing: working with paranormal teams, I've found there are some people that just want to lie. Like they just straight up want to lie.
See, that's the thing. I want the truth. I want to go out and find it. I don't care. I don't have any biases that says like, if we went out and we were looking for Bigfoot, right? And we get out there and we don't find anything, I don't have any biases that's going to be like, oh, guys, we saw something that it really could have been. Yeah, but
there are people that you bring with you that get excited about anything.
See, I don't like that.
And they see a deer in the damn bush moving, and they're like, it's Bigfoot.
I don't like that. See, I don't like that.
No, so like on that picture, though, so like this actually happened a couple times with, and this was not the group that I was telling you about that I was working with Donnie Blessings and Kenny Young. This was with another group called Prism. I think they've disbanded, and they're here in Lawrence County. They're over there in Lawrence County. Yeah. But they were called Prism. But I had some problems working with them because some people was falsifying shit, and I was like, you can't falsify data even when the story is real. Yeah. When there are witnesses, because it hurts the whole thing.
It literally just hurts what you're trying to make it as. So I agree.
Yeah, there were some people that were, they were like, oh, we got something on infrared. Go out there. And I was like, all right.
Yeah.
And like there were literal women there that were scared for my safety going out there. And I was like, hey, it'll make a cool story. Yeah. If I die, it'll make a cool story.
It'll make even better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's one of those things. Like,
okay. So, but the thing is that when I went out there, I actually get closer to that bush. Yeah. And I'm shining a light out there. I had a flashlight, but you can't see it on my right hand. And I didn't see anything with my naked eye. Nothing. I didn't even get weird vibes, nothing. But they had cameras in the back, and I wish I had those pictures too. And there is something in the infrared that shows up like green, because the infrared camera we had was green, but we had another that's thermal, and both of them showed something there. But I didn't see it with my eyes. So when I got back and I was like telling everybody I didn't see anything.
It looks like something's there. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It looks like there's some kind of a weird face maybe even that could be there, or that could be like the upper torso. Like it looks like this could be arms. Yeah. There's a lot of different things I could see out of that.
So when I got back, though, everybody was like, you need to say you seen something. I'm like, no, I'm not going to lie. Man.
Yeah.
I mean, we got the photograph. The photograph's cool. Yeah. But why would I lie? Like,
exactly. That's what I said that one day when I did that last episode where I talked about death. And you get a lot of people who will say that they saw something because they're grieving, they miss their people, and that's kind of a big thing. Like, I think that when you pass, you become consciousness itself, right? Like you go back to the ether of whatever consciousness is. I think that would take a long time for you to figure out your corporeal form, like what you are after
it would be a shock.
It would be a shock. Like, so to show up and just, as soon as you pass away to just talk to somebody it doesn't resonate with me. It doesn't feel like that would be the case. Now, if you believe in the thought process of if you believe in the thought process of life after death, where you've done this several times, I think that there could be people who maybe get used to the transition and probably could say, they pass away and they're just like, I'm good. This is like my 30th time dying. I'm good.
I think that our human body and our organs actually downgrade our senses, if that makes sense. So now I'm not telling you what to believe, but if you follow the idea that, you know, the soul can communicate, then that tells you right there you don't need a brain, you don't need vocal cords. You don't. Yeah. So if this thing can think and feel and communicate with a living person, then we can say you don't need a brain for that. Right. So then you would be asking, why do we have a brain? Why do we? So then when you look at like medical things, somebody gets brain damage.
Storing knowledge. Like there's like, I mean, you don't necessarily need it. Like for a computer, right? There's a way to run an operating system and not have storage.
Right.
So you could totally run an operating system still to be able to do things, but it just wouldn't be able to remember it. So it's like, I think that's kind of like what your brain would do.
So I do not know though if when we die, if it's instant and we know, or if it's something that we're learning, or if it's a shock. I don't know if we have emotions like that. We might be calm. We might be like, oh man, I'm glad, you know.
So I had
as a human, it was horrible.
Yeah, I had a really close, like a moment where I thought I was dead. I still, to this day, kind of question.
That's me
sometimes.
every other day.
Yeah, so like...
I'm a type 2 diabetic.
Yeah, so I still question, you know, what's going on, like whether or not I'm even here sometimes.
Oh, no, I'll get that. Yeah, where you feel like everything's an illusion.
So maybe I'm actually not here, and this is just my brain playing tricks with me, like trying to say that I'm dead. And
yeah, that's normal, though.
I got beat pretty bad, and it was a bad beat, and... The sad part is nothing ever after that moment kind of seemed real. And all of the knowledge that I had just kind of seems like it's weird. It's weird. So like I'll go about my normal day today and it just seems like things will come to me. Like knowledge just comes to me. It doesn't like back when, you know, before that I got beat in the park, it was a moment where knowledge, I had to go find it. But now it seems like knowledge comes to me. It's different.
Well, the more I do know, the more you acknowledge that this is happening, the more you're opening that gate for it, and you're manifesting. Floods in
more, yeah. So that's why I don't really know if this is really happening or if it's like, because there's been some people who have passed away. They were dead for, in their mind, months. Or they've lived lives where they thought that they had wives, they got married, they did all these different things. Come to find out, they wake up from a coma that they've been in for like 7 days, or it's only been this short amount of time, but they were dead, and like what? Like they're coming back to existence. Like, so all of that was not right. Like none of that was real. So like your brain can flood your mind with like dopamines and different types of things can make you feel like time extends longer than what.
Yeah.
And that scares me because you never know if what you're feeling or sensing right this second is actually real or if it's your mind playing with you.
That's what the philosophers of old looked at. They were like, is this really an illusion?
Yeah.
And they started to figure out things that didn't make much sense.
Right.
And they were like, you can make certain things happen just by thinking it or by allowing the thoughts to flow.
Yeah.
That's where you get into that whole book of thought or manifestation.
And it gets interesting because, you know, some of the knowledge that we have right now, if I was to tell you that all of this is just not real, it's just thought. And I was to show you that this is just thought, it kind of makes the whole facade of the world seem less.
Mm-hmm.
And when people try to like tell
you don't stress over
mundane things, and like I might not be this super, you know, business guy who owns, you know, a Fortune 500 company. I don't own a jet or a Lamborghini or any of those things, but those are all monetary things that don't mean much at all anyway. So it's like, in the grand scheme of things, there's like a certain basic, I really want to do a book on that. It's just like the basic needs of what a human...
Well, a person will evolve their needs too.
Right.
So you got food, shelter, clothing, sex.
Right.
Then you got quantity versus quality. So when people were figuring out food, shelter, clothing, sex, they then move into...
a better quality.
Quantity first. So they want more of it.
More of it. Then
they realize, no, the better is quality. So then it's quality.
So then there's more of the frivolous stuff as well
Then
too.
you get into
so like,
power.
So power,
then you get into what is real power. Knowledge is power later on. But when you're first learning about power, it's control, it's manipulative, violence, war.
So if you can learn the basics of everything that you possibly will need or will use in this world, if you could just show a list that's like literally from start to finish, so all the things you just named, right? And then you had a list of all the basic, nothing powerful, nothing extra, just the basic list of all the things that you will encounter, like almost like your first generation list. Like if you were in a game, this is your first tier of what you could get or what you could do in the game.
It's based off survivability at first.
Right.
So, and mundane at first, and then later it's not.
That's a book right there. I don't care what anybody says, that's a book.
Well,
not only is that a book,
been books
but
written
that'd be
on it.
A good fucking book.
So that's what makes a person shallow or not.
Right.
There are some people in this world that are our age, and they only give a damn about, I don't know,
stuff.
Very mundane, shallow thing. You can probably think of people.
Absolutely.
I can too. Like my old jiu-jitsu instructor, John, it's all mundane stuff. He didn't care about knowledge in the way that we would.
Yeah. But he taught us a lot of knowledge.
No,
but it was
he
different type.
But his knowledge was based on how do I get better, more of that over there. So you move from mundane.
Talking about the person who taught us martial arts back in the day when we were kids.
Yep.
Brian ended up becoming like the best out of all of us. Like he literally became the student of.
I was a sensei there for a while. Yeah.
Literally side by side with our teacher. And your brother did the same too. He got really
Sean,
good.
Yeah, he actually took up judo more. I never understood why he went from jiu-jitsu to judo, but I mean it's whatever. He doesn't do Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I went.
It's because Brazilian jiu-jitsu is technically judo.
I went the other route. I went through all these different schools, dropped out of all these different programs because all of them seemed like they didn't know what they were talking about.
Oh no, I played around. I learned a lot.
Did you go through a couple different ones?
We like every time we went to one of the Hall of Fames or something, like there would be somebody teaching kung fu. I never heard of it. Cool. I'm like, I'm gonna go learn it.
Yeah, I loved kung fu. Kung fu was fun.
Yeah.
Like I found that kung fu was actually easier than I expected it to be.
Yeah.
It was all.
Well, if you have a good instructor. There are some fakes out there.
It was all based off of animals and forms of animals, and I was like, "That's so cool."
And
so
combat more.
So if you kept the animal in your mind as you did the moves that went with it, they corresponded easier. Like if you thought of yourself as a snake while you were doing snake, it felt like you were doing the essence of it. Yeah. Like eagle claw made more sense when you were snatching downwards instead of trying to snatch upwards, and like there's little things that
eagle
just
claw,
was really
tiger
cool.
Claw,
yeah, Tiger claw was like super. Out of all of them, I thought it was the best one. Like to me, it felt and resonated perfect.
Yeah. Then you had Tai Chi that was more about like flowing and.
I found Tai Chi to be amazing. Like I think that most of the Tai Chi practitioners that I have found are normally little dudes. I don't know why that is, but if you get a bass-rootin' dude that learned Tai Chi, geez Louise, that thing would be like deadly. Yeah. I'm telling you, I don't know why.
But see, that's where we're getting into like the mundane to the better, because like somebody in like Tiger Claw, they'd be focusing on strength and power.
Strength and power, but the Tai Chi
guy
shows like the elegance of
and he's meditating a lot, learning,
if you could find a person who could sit down and really just be as big as like Bass Rutten or like a, just this monstrous dude who just practices Tai Chi would be terrifying. It'd be terrifying. I don't care. That'd be oof.
Yeah, towards the end of it though, I mean, I went with Wing Chun Kung Fu later on because it had
I actually
a lot
loved
of elements.
I loved everything I learned about Wing Chun. There's a
little bit of Tai Chi in Wing Chun.
So I was really into capoeira for a while, and you remember
when we were young,
we were real young, and we really got into that, and I really depended heavily on my kicks. My kicks were like everything to me. I got out to Hawaii, and I got into a weird scrap with this guy. He cut me off. I was on a motorcycle. Needless to say, I tried to throw a couple kicks at him. Mm-hmm. He instantly swooped me down, took me to the ground, and I had this weird moment where I'm like, oh crap. I'm like, none of this worked. So I'm basically fighting and battling to get standing back up, and I needed to stand back up to be able to for my stuff to work.
Yeah.
And he didn't need that. He needed me on the ground bleeding is what he wanted. And so I learned really quickly that some of these styles are kind of useless if you don't know the extent of where you can put them, like a capoeira person in a closet, you're screwed. Like
or an airplane.
An airplane. Yeah, you're screwed. You're not going to be able to use your skills. Yeah. So learning that there is a time and a place for every type of skill that you will learn that's vital.
Yeah.
Maybe that should be something.
Do a show one day on
I was going to say, maybe, I have the camera setups. We could set this up to do full body structure. Like the cameras will follow you. Like,
okay. Yeah.
So like we could show a lot of stuff.
I haven't posted on my, I have a Wing Chun account. Though. I haven't posted on there in ages.
That could be fun that could be a fun thing. We could definitely do some cool stuff on that.
Yeah. For years, I kind of fought with the idea of opening up my own school here, but really the only reason I did not is I did not want to have students here. And then I knew I was going to move away and I didn't want to just abandon them. So, I was always kind of like, well, I got to have the mind frame of still being a student and I'm still learning things. And
you saw my class. Things. Like I've had several. I've had several little.
Stuff was amazing.
I enjoy teaching it. Like I enjoy having moments where you learn from your students. I think that's so cool, man. Like so cool. Yeah. But if you go into it with like no ego and you're not trying to like outdo the person who's there trying to teach you something, you'll have the greatest time ever.
Yeah,
but
that's one thing I couldn't stand about John.
Yeah, you'll get a lot of people who have that. Yeah, they're like, my style's the best style. There's no other styles that you'll ever need.
Cobra Kai.
Like I'm
totally Cobra Kai.
Yeah, that is literally what we learned. Yeah, it's scary. Yeah. But with this, I think that we will wrap this one up. And we are 2 hours in.
Yeah, this has been a long one.
Yeah, this has been a long one. We wasn't even trying to come into this like this. This has been great. And I'm telling you, with just the ideas of some of the things that we were talking about, we could do full episodes on. I mean, this is like we just shot you with so much information that
you should probably name this one "Conspiracies" or something about.
Because
we talked a lot about.
We talked a lot about conspiracies.
There was more.
Maybe opening the veil or something of it. Like, I don't know. But, with that, we will, you want to say anything? Last final words?
No, I'm not worried about anything. My name is Tzion Barlev. He called me Brian earlier, but that's my, this
has been my best friend since we were kids.
That's fine. I got family that still call me Brian. But my Hebrew name is Tzion Barlev. You can find me on Tzion Talks on YouTube if you're interested. I'm only doing a target audience of like 2% of the world. It's mainly for people that want to get involved in Judaism. So I figured that if we're gonna, if I'm gonna talk about paranormal stuff and other things, I'll just come here on the higher frequency show. So
love it, the higher frequency.
Yep.
Let's go.
Yep.
I got a bunch of stickers in there for you later as soon as we get out.
About your
you're gonna
higher frequency?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'll put one on my card.
I ordered a bunch of stuff. It's funny. With that, we are going to wrap this one up. And thank you for watching. This has been The Higher Frequency. I'm your host, Mike Booth. Until next time, peace.